Welcome to Conversations on the Rocks, the podcast where the drink is strong and the stories are stronger. I'm your host, Kristen Dokas, and this isn't your average chat fest. Here, real people spill the tea alongside their favorite drinks, from the hilarious to the heart-wrenching. Each episode, a wild card. You'll laugh, you may cry, but you'll definitely learn something new. So grab whatever wets your whistle and buckle up. It's time to dive into the raw, the real, and the ridiculously human. Let's get this chat party started. Hey everybody, it's Kristen Dokas, and you are listening to the latest episode of Conversations on the Rocks podcast, the show that's like your favorite drink. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a whole lot of unexpected twists. And this is my fourth interview with, actually, we are cheating a little bit here. And Caroline, who is my guest today, is a millennial. She is not a Gen Z or zillennial. One of my guests was a zillennial, but she said that she favored more towards the millennial side. But you're on the millennial side, and that's okay. We accept you too. Caroline, tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you so much for saying yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I am Caroline. I am a millennial, solidly a millennial. I just turned 35. I was born and raised in DC, and I recently got my graduate degree from Catholic University in business with a concentration in HR. So that's what I'm doing now. I also left what I thought was going to be my dream job earlier this spring and started a whole new career. So it's been definitely an adventure. It's been kind of a crazy summer. One of my other things about me is that I have a blog that I started in 2014, and it has grown and evolved. But that is where most of my friends have come from, is from blogging and Instagramming and even Twitter. So it's funny. It's like you hear growing up, or I did, don't make friends from the internet. And all my friends are from either where I work or the internet. So I thought that was kind of fun, but I love telling stories. And so when I had the opportunity to jump on the podcast, wanted to take it.
Yay! So it's so funny that you opened with that, because I'm a social media expert. I better be. I've been doing it for 15 years. And back in the day when Twitter was fun, I met a huge group of women, so much that, in fact, that a lot of us are still very close friends. And I started this, for the ones of us that were local, a little thing called Broads Who Tweet, the BWT. So our hashtag was BWTs. And we would do meetups and tweet-ups, and we did a couple of retreats. That was so much fun. And it was just, people would be like, and it's so funny. Like one of my close friends, Tanya, when we go out, they're like, "Oh, how'd you guys meet?" And she's like, "Twitter." And people are like, "Nah." We're like, "Uh-huh." So it's such a fun, way. And just, I liken it to, and this is probably not in your age span, but way back in the day, in the very beginning of the interwebs, when, there were chat rooms, and really chat rooms were the segue. Chat rooms. Yeah. And, we had our own little, you had your own little secret code, POS, Parents Over the Shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, and I was too young to be in chat rooms, but.
Were you there? Were you breaking the rules? But yeah, I started my blog. No, go.
Sorry. AOL had kids only chat rooms. So I used to log on, and I'd be 8 years old in chat rooms, which I don't think my parents knew anything about it, but it was just oh, this is so cool. I can talk to people, talk to strangers. And I was a weird little kid. So it was I'm going to make friends on the internet.
And your 35-year-old self now is like, "Oh my God, I'm so lucky." Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, really.
I should have been kidnapped. Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I agree with you. Kind of like me being, a Gen Xer as a latchkey kid. I'm like, how I survived. I saw a meme a couple of weeks ago, and I wish I'd saved it. It was talking about Gen X. It's it said something to the akin of, our parents weren't trying to kill us, but they weren't trying to stop it either. You guys were latchkey kids too?
Yeah, we had au pairs until I was in 5th grade, and then we just were we don't want them. So we had a carpool situation. So we would come home after school for a couple hours, and our carpool would just drop us off, and we'd get into fist fights about who could use computer first, but we'd never burn the house down. So I guess, no worse for the wear there.
And if you didn't burn it down with dial-up, you were pretty good. It was never going to be the toaster. It was going to be dial-up internet. Yeah. My kids have
Correct.
never had to hear that sound. So let's talk a little bit about your creative space.
Yeah, so my blog actually started 2014. It was called Little Bitty City One. And it was kind of about me finding my voice working in the city. At the time, I still lived at home. And then I rebranded it into the Cara Love when I was a few years after that. And it became more of just like sharing my style more than anything else. And just, I tell people now that I treat my blog like a paper doll. I just find things that I like and put them together and share, what's making me happy. It's a lot of dresses and sneakers. I will put it that way. Like that is my style, but it's what I've been sharing.
And spoiler, there's a lot. There's also a lot of glitter, which I like. I love glitter. I was totally stalking you today, and I was like, ooh, look at all that glitter.
Yeah, very glitter, very pink. I've leaned into being a girly girl, and that actually started when I worked with Mackenzie, because working at Mission, I didn't really have that much of a dress code. And I was like, I went from a financial advisory firm where it was like pretty business casual to like, I can wear bright colors and I can wear like fun little skirts and I can wear sneakers to work, as long as we were basically appropriately covered up and could move in what we were wearing. So went right back to what I was doing in kindergarten, wearing shorts under the skirts because I was more comfortable that way. But I'd be like moving furniture in skirts and sneakers. But that really kind of helped me find my style again, not having to dress for a financial advisory firm. And now with the job I have, we very specifically do not have a dress code. So there was someone in the office today in shorts, which I thought was interesting, work appropriate, but still it was just like, we really don't have a dress code here.
Well, and if you're still in hospitality, you can't.
Yeah. So I'm more on the corporate side. It's actually in an office, but I think because we do work with chefs, we do work with people in restaurants. It's like if you're in a restaurant, if you're working in a restaurant, it's like no ripped jeans, and wear the branded shirt. But we very much let people express their individuality. Our founder usually is wearing joggers and Gucci sneakers, which cracks me up.
Yes, I'm familiar. I'm familiar. I love it. So tell me a little bit about your life. How long have you been in DC proper?
DC proper on and off for 10 years. So I moved into DC when I was 24. I really lucked out. I found my roommate actually on Craigslist, which, that could have gone very differently, but I met Megan on Craigslist. We had this place in Georgetown, which was insane. Rent was less than $1,000 a month to live in Georgetown. Her boyfriend moved in with us, and I adored him too. I've been to their baby's first birthday party. We're still friends. And then we actually were bought out of our apartment. They gutted it, renovated it, tripled the rent. But at the time, it was great because I was moving in with my then fiance, which we're getting to the meat of it. Yeah. So my fiance and I moved out, and then we lived in Glover Park for another 2 years until I got divorced and moved home. And then COVID hit, and I moved back to DC in 2021. And it has been a journey. And it's funny because I actually moved back to the same complex, different building, different street, but I moved back to the same complex I lived in with my ex-husband.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. And how long were you married?
We were only married for about a year, but everything happened very fast. So we met March of 2016, engaged April of 2017, married in April of 2018, separated in the summer of 2019. So everything was very, very, very fast.
So 35-year-old Caroline, looking back on that, what mistakes and I hate using the word mistakes, but I'm going to use it for this, not for this, but just for the purpose of what happened? Because that's fast, even for your age. That's actually, let me rephrase that. Even for old people, that's fast.
Yeah. So while I was getting divorced, so this is kind of jumping the gun a little bit.
I'm not saying I don't need the dirty nitty-ditty gritty details, but you met, you got engaged, you got married, you got divorced, like within 4 years.
Well, when I was kind of going through it all, I realized that like basically I married the first guy that asked me. And it just seemed too good to be true at the time. Like within a couple months of us dating, he bought me a new Mac because my computer died. And I was like, oh, this guy can take care of me. Like, that's a good sign. He was military. And there's kind of that like joke about like, oh, everybody like moves quickly in the military. It's not a joke. It really happens. And he did a really good job of kind of fooling everybody into us thinking that he was a completely different person than he was. And I also was completely settling, to be completely honest. Like it was just like, okay, this guy wants to marry me. I guess I'll marry him. It kind of turned into that. Like, oh, this guy is giving me attention. That's nice. Like, if we want to move this forward, like, let's move it forward. Like, this works. This will be fine. And it just, there were red flags that I totally ignored. And yeah, just not a great situation. And I hid a lot of stuff that was going on from my parents, from my friends.
Of course you did. Why do you think you were in such, you said it yourself, that he was the first guy that asked you? Do you feel like so what were you, 25 at that time?
I just had turned 26 when we met. Yeah. So mid-20s.
Okay. So did you feel pressure? Did you feel like you were getting pressure from your family, from your friends, from society? As I told you before, I'm a huge societal pressure on girls to be in relationships is a huge soapbox of mine because I think it's ridiculous and I think it's very unhealthy for our young ladies.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's
women,
weird,
period, young or old.
Yeah, the thing that's weird is that, like, I was so happy being, like, the third, fifth, seventh wheel. Like, when my friends would go out in groups, like, I never minded. If there was a restaurant I wanted to go to, I had a group of people that I would just be like, hey, I made us reservations, like, let's go. I didn't even really mind being single, but I think more than, my parents or my friends pressuring me, it was more just, like, I grew up watching Disney movies and rom-coms and, Reese Witherspoon movies where it's like, okay, happy ending. Like everybody gets their happy ending. And I was just kind of looking for mine.
I see it a lot in the South, right? And, if you're not married by 25, you're an old maid, right? And the one thing I've always told my girls is like, whether you get married or not, I want you to be happy. But you've got to be happy with yourself first. I always go through that. I said, but your 20s? I'm like, go. Your 20s are to like go and like do the things and not have to worry about anything or anyone. It's like, that's when it is time for you to live your life, because should you choose to settle down at some point, you're going to have you got the rest of your life if all things work out well. Was it hard to come to the realization? And I'm sure it didn't take very long, because once those vows are said, I've said a couple of times that I think a lot of times young ladies, especially now, are more interested in the wedding than the marriage. And not just ladies. I think the guys are too. I think they're more interested in the wedding than they are the actual marriage itself, because once those party favors are done and once the thank you cards have been written and you're into 3 months into what are we going to have for dinner? Did you pick up the cat litter? Did you do that? You're all of a sudden like, oh, this is not as sexy as all that other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I kind of lucked out, and I'll say I lucked out in that he was on a business trip for a couple of months. So he worked for a startup that was opening in Arizona. So he was out in Arizona. And I got a message from a girl in Arizona, and I called a hey girl message. I was like, just to let you know, I didn't know that you existed, but your husband and I had been having an affair, and I wanted you to know as soon as I found out. And honestly, to this day, I say, God bless Haley from Arizona, because she was kind of the catalyst for me to realize that I had not been treated well and that I didn't think things were going to change and they were just getting worse. And so honestly, God bless Haley from Arizona. So I do say that I really lucked out.
Yay, Haley from Arizona!
Girl. Like the fact that I'm just going to say, she had a lot of balls to tell me that. And I first didn't believe her. I was like, oh, I think you might be confused. And then she went on to tell me about one of his tattoos in detail. And I was like, okay, well, probably the same guy. And I actually called him.
I had a question about Haley. Was he having the affair with Haley?
Yeah.
Oh, he was. So Haley was just like, you are not going to two-time both of us. Good for her. Well, not good for her. I mean, but see, here's the thing. I never blame the other woman.
Mm-mm.
I never do. People are always like, that, you fill in the blank word you want to use for that harlot, that this, that other. And I'm like, honey, it ain't, I mean, she didn't just walk up to him and go, hey, you're married. Let's have let's have an affair. I am sure the onus was on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I called him that day and I said, who's Haley? And he goes, I think you know. And I said, okay. Megan and I are going to a concert tonight. Do not call me. Do not text me. We will talk about this when I get home. But I'm going to the Maren Morris concert. Leave me alone.
Do you think he even cared? I know that sounds really harsh, but people like that, and just I've known people like that, and I don't want to just say guys or men. I know people that they're just like, all right, next. And I don't mean to make it sound so callous, but
I think he cared that he got caught because I was the one taking care of him. My family was taking care of us. I think he was kind of in like an oh shit kind of moment where he realized he just messed up. Good thing he had going on because he had me in the palm of his hand and he had my parents believing that he was a great guy and everything just came crashing down and it was his fault.
Kitty.
Yeah. I'm babysitting. I do.
For those of you not for those of you that are not watching, there's a cat in the scene right now. Black cat.
Yeah,
kind of ominous with this conversation that we're having. Yeah, so yay for Haley, and I would love for you to sit here and tell me that now you guys are BFFs, but I'm sure that's not the case.
No, we've never. So we spoke again one other time when I had a friend who's a lawyer being like, get a copy of their text thread. And I was like, hey, Haley, so sorry to drag you back into this. Would you mind? And she said, I was waiting for you to ask me. I've held on to all of them. And she sent me all of the screenshots.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Wow. So, well, I'm sorry that happened to you in a way. But I'm glad, like you said, I'm glad that you found out sooner rather than later. I remember a couple that I knew when we lived in Pennsylvania 20 some years ago. And the guy called off the divorce, right? Or no, I'm sorry. They got married and then divorced within like 90 days. And I remember somebody saying to her, and I've said this to other people, not to trivialize it, but it's like, it's better to find out in the beginning when all you're having to do is split furniture and not kids.
Yes, 100%. And he actually, when we were engaged, was trying to get me to have kids with him before we were married. And I'm kind of wondering what his angle was now, but I'm so glad there are no kids in the mix. That would have been so much harder.
Permanence. That's what his angle was, permanence. Because he knew he was going to be a shit.
You're probably right. Yeah.
He did. I mean, because those kind of people are like that and they don't change.
Hear what actual AI-generated voices are saying about the Wheeler's Dog podcast.
It can be amusing.
It's better than going to the dentist.
The award-winning Wheeler's Dog podcast can be found just about anywhere that you get podcasts.
Listening to Eugene is better than looking at Eugene.
Let's put it this way. The Wheeler's Dog podcast is better than having your leg broken by a loan shark.
If AI-generated voices are saying that about the Wheeler's Dog podcast, shouldn't you be a listener too?
What's your outlook on with relationships now in your mid-30s?
I've had a couple of relationships since then, and it's almost like with every single one, and I think this is probably the same for everybody, I've learned like what I will and won't accept. I've learned what makes me sad or angry from people. I'm a lot better at voicing that, like, hey, you did this thing, I didn't like it, I didn't like your tone, don't take that tone with me, or I didn't like how you didn't take my feelings seriously. And I also have found that like the more honest I am, the more receptive these men are. So I think it's just, I'm looking at the whole thing as just a learning experience, but certainly not going to jump into getting married to anybody quickly again. I would like to, but just definitely want to take my time with it now.
had a thought that just completely smoked out of my head. Speaking of relationships, and I'm glad that you're still open to it, because I've had this conversation with Mackenzie when she and I chatted a few weeks ago. It's, we're not meant to be alone. However, it is much better to be happy and alone than together with somebody and be miserable. And it does change your perspective when you go through that. But it also kind of makes you a little bit more, do you think it makes you a little kinder? Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I sometimes feel, and I have to say this is a woman thing, that there's a lot of bad behavior in men nowadays. Mm-hmm. And I find what I observe, and through, the brief time, the little bit of time that I was back in the dating pool, which I am grateful that I didn't have to spend too many years in that, because it's awful. It's crazy, especially down here, but especially with your age group and, those in your 20s and 30s. And there's a lot of bad behavior. And I have to say it's because women are not holding these men up to a higher standard. They're letting them get away with stuff, which if you are with somebody and that's what you want to do, that's your prerogative. But if it's a casual dating thing, and now, Anne Marie is dating Ben or going out with Ben, and Ben's, doing crappy things, and then you meet up with Ben, and now you've got to deal with it because Anne Marie put up with it. Ben thinks it's okay. What's your take on that?
I do think that we need to be better about holding men accountable, 100%. I have found that I've gotten better at holding them accountable. I was with someone relatively seriously for about 2 years, and I just was not getting what I needed from our relationship. I was like, we had very different schedules, which was part of it, but I finally was just like, this is not what I deserve. And he was like, you're right. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you recognize it. Whether or not it actually went through his head, who knows? But it was just like,
you're right, but you're not going to get it from me.
Exactly. And, he was not treating our relationship like it was an adult relationship. And that's what I'm looking for. So I think the older I get, like, the less I care about bothering someone or upsetting someone, because it's like, hey, this is what I need. I'm an adult. You're an adult. Can you give it to me? Yes or no? If not, thank you, next. So I definitely am trying to hold men more accountable for, how they act. I've been on dates where people have talked to me in a way that I don't like, and I'm just like, no, this is not going to work. I will never see you again. See yourself out. Thank you. It's like,
good for you.
I'm not playing games anymore. That's really what it comes down to. I'm not playing games anymore.
It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Yeah. And you go, wait a minute. I was doing this crap when I was in high school, like in the beginning of college. I'm 35. And for me, I was like, I am 50 and this is some BS. I'm not, at my age, even, not that I'm single anymore, but just looking at some of my friends that are, and it's a running joke, but it's not that at our age, like the midlife post-divorce dating, it's like men are looking for a nurse or a purse. I mean, they don't want to be single. They don't want to be alone. They want a wife. And I'm like, I want a wife. Who wouldn't want a wife? Who wouldn't want somebody to take care of them, do their laundry, I want a wife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like my parents have been together for, okay, I'm 35, 36 years. So, I mean, they have a system that works for them. And, my mom is a wife. Like she is like a great wife. She's always worked, but like she like has a way she wants the house to look. She wants, things a certain way. But my dad, bless his heart, will do his best to get it to where she wants it to be. Like and it's funny. So like the running joke my mom and I have is my dad makes the bed every single morning. Every single morning he puts the pillows upside down. There's like a bird pattern. The birds are upside down every morning. But my mom is like, he's there making the bed. I'm not going to complain. I will just turn the pillows around because that is my problem that I'm annoyed by it, not his. And he's doing his
right. That's all. Done is better than perfect is one of my mottos.
Exactly. So my dad gets it done and then my mom makes it perfect and that works for them.
It works for them. It does. And, that's what long term, really, it's about, compromising and empathy and, accepting each other where you are. I think that's a big lesson that you learn, as you get a little bit older and I try to teach you have to meet people where they are. You can't say, I need you to be here. And they're like, I'm not there. And you're like, well, then why aren't you there? So that's so cute. Oh, my light just went off. So what else? What else do you, but going back to the whole men behaving badly thing, I hear some stories, because Mackenzie likes to talk. She's a chatterbox.
That's why we get along
She'll
so well.
tell me some of the stories of I know. She tells me some of the stories that she tells me about some of the circle that I'm just like, why? Why did these girls put up with this? And I'm just amazed by it because there's 7 billion people in this world. That person who is cheating on you is not the last person that you're ever going to meet. And so I don't get it. And all of you are so talented and so beautiful and just so, just great human beings that it makes me sad when I hear stories like that the ones that are willingly staying with someone who is stepping out on them.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, for me, with I'm just going to say Kendall, my ex, I didn't think that things were bad enough to leave. And so then when I found out he cheated on me, I was like, okay, now they're maybe bad enough. And I think that the biggest thing that I realized is things don't have to be the worst to be bad enough to leave. It could just be that you're not compatible. It could be that you're looking for different things. It could be that you have different communication styles. If it's not working for you, you don't have to force it. You don't have to wait for someone to step out on you or, God forbid, hit you. It can be bad enough that it just isn't working for your relationship.
And it doesn't even have to be considered bad. If you if this is not working for you, if this doesn't bring you joy and it doesn't make you happy, it's not, and that's the other thing that kills me is everyone, you'll talk to people and I'm like, what do you think about that? I'm like, oh, it'll be fine when we get married. No, it won't. If you're annoyed by the fact he leaves a plate in the sink now, wait till you get married and it's going to be if he made dinner, that issue is going to be all over the kitchen. It does not get better. It gets worse. And that's what I mean by everybody wants the wedding and nobody wants the marriage.
Yeah. And I've said that to my friends that are younger too. I'm like, if you're this concerned about getting engaged or if you're not sure you want to marry this person, you don't have to marry them. You don't have to break up with them right now, but you don't have to get into that legally binding commitment either. You can just, if it's not working, it's not going to be made better once you're in a contract.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's just going to intensify by 10. I'm glad you got out of that. I'm glad you're happy. And I hate that it happened the way it did, but it happened the way it was supposed to is the way I always look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And it was meant to be that way. So let's talk about something fun. Am I correct in remembering you're a big Swiftie?
I am. Yes, I have my Taylor Swift water bottle right here. One of my best friends got this there are 3 of us. So I have the light pink one. She has a hot pink one. And the third one has the light blue one. I'm a huge, huge Taylor Swift fan.
So did you go to any of her shows for Eras?
Yes, I was at Houston night 2. And I have seen it on the video on Disney Plus, probably 5 times at this point. I'm a giant Taylor Swift fan. In fact, I got divorced during COVID and I'd wanted to have a divorce party and that kind of went out the window. So I did Taylor Swift themed divorce photo shoot.
I love it. Are there pictures of that on your blog?
Actually, there are. Yeah, I can go and find the link and I can send that to you. But yes,
yes. Or I can dig for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I love the divorce parties and the wedding dress burning parties. Those are great. I love that. That's such a great way of freedom. Where I was really going with this, because I love Taylor too. I didn't get to go to see her show because I can't justify that kind of money. But I have so many friends that went to Europe this summer and they were having these amazing adventures. I had one that went to Germany, one that went to France, and another one that went to Australia. No, it wasn't it the Austria shows that just got canceled?
Yeah, that was
that
the
horrible
shows.
thing.
Yeah.
Amsterdam. That was the other one, and just had these huge times. But after watching the show on Disney, I was like, I really should have remortgaged my house and gone. It's just like, that was amazing.
Well, I actually lucked out because, my friend who lives in Texas was like, can you get to Texas in 2 weeks to go see Taylor Swift? Tickets already paid for. And I was like, well, I will be getting to Texas in 2 weeks. And I wore my wedding dress, actually, to the Taylor Swift concert. So it's my Taylor Swift dress now.
You did not.
I did.
Love it. Get more use out of that. I don't know where you stand politically. And this is really not that piece of it. However, have you started to hear the rumors that, well, first of all, are you going to join in on if you're a Kamala fan, the big Swifties for Kamala Zoom call?
I have not heard of that, but that sounds like so much fun.
And I only caught the headlines over the past 24 hours. So there's the Zoom, the Swifties for Kamala, but rumor has it she's going to show up next week in Chicago.
Oh, that could be huge. Honestly, a Taylor Swift's endorsement, huge.
Yes, ma'am. And it will, if all of these Brads, Chads, and Dads lost their shit over her being at every Kansas City Chiefs football, can you imagine? Their heads are going to explode. They're going to look like those little voodoo dolls the bodies are this big and their heads are like this. They are going to lose their minds. Because you and I both know that her core audience, they're going to listen to her, but she's not going to be like Kid Rock who goes out there and just blows steam out of his, she is going to be very thoughtful. I mean, if you obviously watched, her documentary, I mean, she was very upfront with her dad. She's like, no, I cannot not say something about this man. I mean, people just don't give her enough credit for how intelligent she is and that she can move literal mountains.
Yeah, no, I'm all for a Taylor Swift endorsement. So actually there was a rumor that it already happened. Somebody screenshotted something from a concert and they're like, she's endorsing Kamala, because it was a silhouette of someone in a pantsuit. And it was one of her dancers from the Man segment. And they're like, guys, she hasn't endorsed anybody yet. But I just thought that was funny. Just kind of looking for
You need to calm down.
Exactly.
You need to calm down. Yeah. So when we get done, we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, but yeah, you have to go look at that. But I just saw that here over the past 24 hours. So, if there's rumors already circulating, and obviously, that's the side that she sits on, but that's going to be a big game changer. And, I don't know what JD Vance is going to say about those childless cat ladies at this point.
I mean, I very much am a childless cat lady. I'm actually a catless cat lady. This one is a Rover. I babysit on Rover. I don't have my own, but yes, childless cat ladies for Kamala. We're going to own it.
Listen, like I told, I was laughing with Mackenzie on her episode. I was like, I don't know. She seems to be doing pretty well in my book.
Yeah.
To be a childless cat lady.
Exactly.
Caroline, it has been such a delight chatting with you, and I appreciate your openness and your honesty in talking with us about, what was probably a pretty tough time in your life. But it's interesting to hear how mature you handled that, and how it made you grow. And I know you're going to do great things, and even if you end up being a childless cat lady, you're going to be a happy childless cat lady.
I am. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll dig up those Taylor Swift divorce pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on one second. So, all right, everybody, it's time to say goodbye. Until next time, may your cups be full, your mind be open, and your heart full of kindness, because we are all battling something. Take care and talk to you later. As the saying goes, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And that's a wrap for this week's episode. A big thanks to my guests for sharing their story, and to you for listening. Don't forget to share the show with your friends and spread the words. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, the link is in the show notes. Till next time, cheers.